Girls that.
One sec. I will then call this, July 14th regular meeting of the Knox County Commission to order. All three commissioners are here in person. And as we usually do, we start with commission updates. Does any member of the commission have any updates they would like to share with the public, with each of us?
I have one update. I've been out of town, out of the country for most of the past 2 weeks, but I did go by the Rockport Select Board meeting last night just to bring them up to date with the county's doing with about Queen's new position and correct some information they had wrong in the debates for new select board members, and introduced myself to new select board members and said, you know, we're always interested in what's going on. It was a good visit.
Great. Thank you. Anything?
I attended the Mid-Coast Council of Governments General Assembly meeting in June. And I was there just for the business portion, but the budget was approved, their annual budget was approved, and they shared a bunch of updates that they're working on their website. It's a great resource for information. Just, to put that on everyone's radar. And I think that's, I guess the other thing that I learned, which probably other folks maybe already knew, is that Matt Eddy has stepped down and they're looking for a new executive director at Mid-Coast Council of Governments. So many thanks to Matt. He has done an incredible job with the organization during his tenure and really brought it back to life and doing some excellent work for our region. So that's my update.
Right. And I attended a couple of meetings from the Coastal Communities Workforce Group, which is a workforce training group for the coastal Maine counties. We're losing our executive director and we're in the process of advertising and hiring a new one. We're probably going to hire one in-house. We had a search committee who put that together and they're very happy with the candidate that they think they have in hand. So we're working on that. Also attended the monthly meeting of the Maine County Commissioners Association. There's not a lot happening on a county commissioner level right now. We're waiting for the legislative session to start again come fall. Mostly what they're doing is sitting around and planning the convention, and what is it going to be in Sandy River?
Sunday River.
Sandy River. I keep getting it. Sandy River is the Narragansett Railroad, so we mistake a lot on that one. Also trying to find ways to work with the Sheriff's Association on new legislation that will be coming down the pike that we can all agree on. That it's that time of year. Things are a little slow, which is good. Anybody else have anything you want to add? If not, I will open it up to public comment. Is there anyone who would like to address the commission? Please come to the table, identify yourself, and
Theodore Berry of Rockland. Good afternoon. I'm glad I came this month because it's a slow month, so I can stop by. First issue, so I came at some point earlier, I think in the year. So since December, the Knox County Jail's been sort of shut down, other than 72-hour holds. And I had initially requested some sort of transport opportunity for Rockland clients from Two Bridges to be shipped to the Knox County Jail 1 day a month so their attorneys can meet with them without their attorneys having to drive all the way to Two Bridges. If it could be once a month, if it could be at some point in the morning between 8 and 10 or 8 and 11 in the morning. The jails are busy at night, but they're less busy in the morning, and so, that's just sort of another public comment related to that. And then, I'd like the commission to please review the Two Bridges Jail agreement, because I'm aware of at least one person who, if the Knox County Jail were open, would be here in Rockland. They've been shipped from Rockland to Two Bridges Jail, and then from Two Bridges Jail, they've now been shipped to Wyndham. And so, in order for me to visit, instead of being in Rockland, I have to go all the way down to Wyndham to meet with them. I don't know if the commission, if that was the deal, but that's sort of what I'm seeing on the ground. Secondarily, the second issue, so everyone, if you watch television, you see Miranda warnings. If you can't afford an attorney, one will be appointed to you. Every legislator that I've spoken to believes that. However, there was a 5-4 decision by the U.S. Supreme Court in Scott versus Illinois, 1976, that provided a loophole. Even if you're indigent, you are not entitled to counsel that's court appointed if the state does not request jail time. Now, U.S. Supreme Court decisions are the floor, they're not the ceiling. So here in Maine, we had greater constitutional rights under Article 1, Section 6 of the Maine Constitution, which continued to provide people that were screened and found to be indigent access to legal counsel that's court appointed until 1998. In 1998, the law court made a decision that I personally disagree with, that deprives people who are found to be indigent of court-appointed legal counsel. Even if they're indigent, the court will deny them counsel. And in situations like that, where you've been arrested for multiple crimes, such as OUI, even if you're indigent, if the state does not ask for jail time, you're out of luck. And so, one issue that I'd like to raise is that, we have statutes under Title IV of the Maine Revised Statutes, Chapter 6, which provide all citizens the right to county law libraries. And I've been very frustrated with this Scott versus Illinois 1979 decision because I cannot represent every single person who's being denied counsel that is indigent. And so it is imperative that the county please consider bringing back the county law library, where pro se individuals would have access to law library resources. They would have access to LexisNexis and Westlaw. Right now, the closest access is Augusta. And so if you're indigent and you're not entitled to counsel, and we have very few lawyers in this county, you have to spend gas money to go all the way to Augusta to try to have access to legal research that the state has always had legal research. Prior to the election of Natasha Irving, we had a county law library on the second floor in this building. When Natasha Irving was elected, she spread just a lot of words of, we don't need a law library anymore. The people can just use Google to find case law and access legal information. The state cites cases from legal search engines that people cannot afford to have access to, such as LexisNexis. We used to have access to that. We don't now. Natasha Irving's law office does not say Natasha Irving's name, it says law library on it. She's commandeered public access to county law library materials. And so what I did this morning was I reviewed the statutes again, and I contacted Jason Heath, the Knox County Bar Association, what I believe to be the president, because their website states that he's the president. Apparently he hasn't been the president since 2023. Haley Hall is now the president of the Knox County Bar Association. It is, by statute, her initial duty to be appointing members of the Knox County Law Library Committee. It is up to that committee to find space. It is up to that committee to adopt policies and procedures. It is up to that committee to protect the public from not having the right of access to the courts. The right of access to the courts is a First Amendment right. That is not only the right to go upstairs and file pleadings, but it's the right to have access to build your case, to review cases, to review statutes, to be able to draft a brief on your own accord. Dating back to Gideon versus Wainwright, 1976, where you had a pro se individual who made it all the way up to the US Supreme Court and stated that he had the right to counsel when the court said he didn't. US Supreme Court stated that he did. And in the arc of cases, it's become an issue of sort of budgetary issues. However, the law under MRSA Title IV, Chapter 6, is that there shall be a county law library accessible to the public in Rockland, Maine. There presently isn't. And so the Knox County Bar Association has breached their legal duties to appoint members for a Knox County Law Library. They have breached their duties for over 8 years. The statutes provide, if your county bar association breaches their duties to oblige by these statutes, they can seek another body, such as the Knox County Commission, to appoint members for a county law library committee. So I request the Knox County Commission to please contact Attorney Haley Hall and ask her why she hasn't appointed any members of the Knox County Library Committee since her election 2.5 years ago. Hopefully, she's simply incompetent of these statutes and she will appoint members for this committee. I've requested to be a member of this committee. I'm happy to collaborate with the commission. It really pains me to have individuals beg me for help, and I'm just one person. I at least want to be able to provide the systemic resources so individuals can try to defend themselves. Now, last night, the City of Rockland City Council made a decision to increase photocopy fees at the Rockland Public Library. The Rockland Public Library has essentially become the de facto county law library in terms of access to photocopy privileges, which as a matter of statute, the county law library should be provided as a matter of statute. And so I recognize that this county law library has been defunct since Natasha Irving. We had it during Jeffrey Rush law. It's an undertaking that I'm willing to do because it's a systemic good for the public that without it, it's an undue burden to the Rockland Public Library. Individuals who are pro se, who are poor, that are homeless, are going to the Rockland Public Library, printing out briefs and trying to serve the state to try to defend themselves. It's an undue burden on the Rockland Public Library, and so I warmly invite the commission to please contact Haley Hall. I'll try to follow up, sooner than later, but like I'm here to collaborate with the commission, and I have an opportunity to enforce the law. And I think enforcing the law starts with dialogue and discussion, and just some exposure of identifying what the issues are. We need an industrial printer somewhere, either in this courthouse, somewhere nearby, that provides access to county law legal research. And then one thing I recently learned, so I went to the Tri-County Public Defender Office, and they informed me that with MCLS, the Commission for Indigent Legal Services, that there's a certain amount of money each year that's devoted to different entities. We don't have a Penn Bay Public Defender Office. We could, and it's to my understanding that there are funds that are allocated for office space, for a public defender office. What I've been told is that those resources that should be coming to Rockland are being diverted to Portland because Portland has the office space and the infrastructure to have it. I strongly encourage the Knox County Commission to please start a dialogue with MCLS to figure out how we can have a Penn Bay Defender Office. where there aren't, the infrastructure that we had 10 years ago isn't necessarily here anymore. And so anything that I can do to collaborate with the commission, I'm all on board with. And it's not just the law library here, it's the law library in the Maine State Prison. We had a whistleblower letter that was circulated through the law librarian staff, that the prison law library in Warren had been subjected to a mass shredding of law books, and their law books were turned to garden mulch. And the Maine State Prison has not had access to a law library since April of 2020. And so there are 2 law libraries in this county that previously existed that do not exist right now. And so any collaboration that I can provide to the commission, I come with open support and willingness to volunteer my time to ensure that we have these systemic resources that go beyond just myself. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Can these law libraries be digital, or do they have to be books?
So we need books. We need books. We need books for a number of reasons. One, Westlaw does not provide the main jury instructions manual. We need books. There is no online legal search engine that provides all of the main law books because there's different copyrights. So there are some that are not provided through LexisNexis. There are some that are not provided through Westlaw. We need books. In addition to that, we need a printer. As a matter of statute, we are entitled to photocopying privileges. We need an industrial printer. In addition to that, we need access to LexisNexis. Like, we need access to these legal search engines. So we need computer infrastructure. And it can't be the City of Rockland's public library. It needs to be a separate county law library, which we had the space. We still have a room in the building that says law library. It's just a matter of the will of the commission. And it's just the will of the public, and it's the will of the County Bar Association. It's the will of the judiciary. And the will of the County Bar Association has been silent on this for at least the last 8 years. So we need a combination of both. We need a combination of online legal research search engines that exist in Augusta. We also need books. Some people are disabled. Some people are blind. Some people need Braille books. Some people need physical books. I love books. I used to hate books. But Maine Civil Remedies, Maine Tort Law, Maine Family Law, these are hard copy books that I'm under the belief do not exist on any legal search engine that I'm aware of. So we need a combination, because otherwise we're left with gravities of injustice. We're left with individuals that feel that the system is rigged against them because they don't have access to counsel. They're approved as poor through their financial screener, but the court denies them counsel because of a decision from 1998 that I'd like to reverse, but that's the situation. What the commission can do to help is to appoint members for a Knox County Law Library, so that committee can start doing the hard work of drafting the policies, reviewing what exists in Augusta and replicating what we had for Natasha Irving's elections.
Have you spoken to legislatures about this as well?
Yes. Yes, I've talked to the court. I've talked to Chief Justice Valerie Stanton. I mean, I've talked to a number of individuals with this.
No, you're talking about, we're talking about the House or Senate legislatures that maybe can change the law to go back to, because I know there's a shortage of people, a huge shortage of lawyers that need to be appointed. We don't have that.
Legislators believe in the Miranda warnings. Legislators believe, every legislator I've spoken to believes that if you are indigent, you are entitled to legal counsel. They do not know about Scott versus Illinois in 1979. They do not know about State versus Cook in the state of Maine in 1998. not a single legislator that I've spoken to is aware of this state loophole. And so I agree, that's a legislative effort that should be done. We don't have cloture until December. In the meantime, there's state law that states that we're entitled to a county law library, we're entitled to a right of access to the courts, we're entitled to an industrial printer. And the burden on the city of Rockland's public library has just been tremendous. And I fully recognize why they had to increase their fees last night. And I don't think the county is aware that the city has been taking the burden of this for a long time.
Sounds like it's gonna be a process. It's
Oh,
not
years.
something that we're gonna do
Oh, years.
right away. So with your permission, I would like to meet with you at some point, as well as the head of the County Bar Association.
Yes, please.
See where we can get started and move in that direction, because you're absolutely right, everybody deserves at least access to, good information, if not an attorney. So yes,
Thank you.
thank you for bringing it to our attention. And I'll also talk to the district attorney and see where we can get started.
I will help you.
Okay,
Thank you. Thank you.
That's a good deal.
Take your time.
Hello, Commissioners. I would use, sorry, I'm slow. So to follow where he, wouldn't remember, Susan Tolman and Judy Olson that were the clerks in this courthouse back when this room here was a courtroom. Recall, and Judy Olson was still very much alive and with a sound mind. Susan is dead, but they recall when the books, the law books, were put on a chute and funneled into a dumpster. And lawyers were stealing these books, but and the clerks were actually recovering them from the dumpster. It was an outrageous event. And now you have a room up there that says law library, and it's not a law library. So I didn't come in to go in that direction. I came in because I'm a victim of crime. And so this former clerk informed me that I was not supposed to be, first of all, I didn't get a victim witness advocate, never, nothing, no help at all that the county is supposed to provide. I got excessively billed for photocopies I should have had for free. According to this former clerk, nothing should be more than 15 cents. You're gouged on these photocopies. $2 the first page, $1 for every other page, and it might be pretty thick by the time you get to the law court. And the fees, you can see them up there on the window, on the second floor, in the window up there, it itemizes the copying, the prices and the fees for things that are excessive. And where the city of Rockland last night has, moved to, increase the copies at the library, which shouldn't even be the court's library. I mean, photocopy, I'm sorry, I'm hot, anyway. So, we have a photocopier in this building, and it is used, by people who are excessively, feed that are not supposed to be, And so I would really encourage another look at that, particularly with people who are victims of crime. Um, it adds insult to injury. When here you have already been victimized, you have nobody to stand with you and advocate for you. And now you're being demanded to pay good money after bad. You're already in a situation. I mean, I got my PFA. I got that on my own, thank you God. However, it should have been a lot easier than it was. I was dragged into court repeatedly in every kind of weather. I had a slap suit against me. I had to prove uh, things that were not true. I had to prove that myself. I had to bring in witnesses, at my own expense. And to add these copy fees is obscene. There was a guy named Potter Stewart on the Supreme Court, and the issue was pornography, I believe. And his famous quote is, Potter Stewart says, "I can't define it, but I know it when I see it." This is obscene, clearly. If it were your daughter, or your mother, or your sister, or somebody like that, if it were you, can you imagine having gone through this whole legal system and having to, first of all, defend yourself against off-the-wall things while you're the victim of crime, and then having to pay? I think I paid $8 in one instance. I paid, I didn't bring in my receipts, because I just heard about this meeting by the city manager said, I should come here and see what you folks have to say. Because I pay taxes, and I expect a certain service for those taxes. And I want to mimic what he said, that I just don't think it's right that with the shortage of lawyers, that they have to drive and spend the price of this gas to go to their clients, when their clients should be able to see them in the county in which they reside, in which they, should be in. And there needs to be a remedy, in my opinion, to make that more just. And, that Bible says, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled." We're here trying to advocate for the right thing. And I'm thanking you for your time of hearing my grievances.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Else wishing to address the commission? Seeing as there's none, we'll move on to the rest of the agenda. And we'll start with routine business. Do I hear a motion?
Second.
Anybody want to read what the routine business is?
Approve items as presented. Are we gonna just do one?
No, we do all.
Yes, that's what I meant. That's what I meant. No, I'm good with all.
Well, the routine business includes this agenda, all the department head reports, the payroll and expense warrants, the reserve withdrawals, the minutes of regular commission meetings from January 13th, January 22nd, February 2nd, February 10th, February 18th, March 4th, March 17th, May 12th, May 20th, June 4th, and June 9th. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I have one question. Margaret, did you get my note about the correction I had for?
Yes, I corrected it. Sent it to everybody.
Okay, I didn't see the correction. basically, because I did February 18th by Zoom, I was correct not here in person, but I was, well, so I corrected that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other items on that? If there's nothing else, then I will call the vote. All those in favor? Me in favor, none opposed. Which brings us to discussion items, which I think means we're turning to the county administrator.
Yes. Okay. The first and probably most important one for today is gonna be the Knox County Charter. So we've talked about this quite a bit. We talked about it quite a bit with our legislative session regarding our 2025-2026 budget process. And I've done a lot of research in the best way to approach this. How do we keep it transparent? What does that committee look like? What's the process? When do we want to have all this done? But at this point, I think the best thing to do is have a couple of public workshops with the commission and myself, and we kind of go through it half one day, half the next workshop. Talk about what changes you all would like to see, even if they're not definitive. You know, what would this look like? What would this look like? And then I can send that to legal, so we have the exact direction to move forward in. There's very different paths depending on what you want to change or how you change it, if it's a revision versus an amendment. So depending on how the commission feels, I think at that point, then we get further direction and then we execute that plan. I'm hoping we can start meeting as a committee beginning of next year, unless there's an election process, if we have to go that path, and then it'll be later in the year next year. Our legislative deadline, if you will, for the foreign language of the charter is, I can't remember the month, but in 2028.
I think it's the end of December.
Okay, so it could be two different paths. We could have to do a small amendment, right, to get that taken care of while we keep working on the revision. So I think it's best to just have an open public conversation about what you all are thinking. I can kind of guide it and give talking points, and then we can pile that into a package and just see where that takes us. Because the biggest, most important piece is going to be who is eligible or required to be on the committee, depending what direction we want to go in.
On a charter committee, speaking,
Oh, what?
on the charter committee,
Correct, yes, yeah.
The difference being the difference between a charter committee and a charter commission.
Yes,
Charter commission would be the one that can look at the whole entire charter and change any part of it. It all still has to go to the voters. But it's no longer just an amendment, it's basically adopting a changed charter. The other process is that of a committee, which just makes recommendations to the commission, and then we pass, we don't pass the amendments, we pass the amendments to go onto the ballot. And there are certain changes within the charter we can make without it going to the voters. Which, such as like a fiscal year, but it's spelled out in the charter, so it's a matter of having this committee look at the charter and decide this is something that we think that we should do or not. So it is a process, and I think it's a great idea to just do it as a public meeting. Hopefully we get the department heads involved, because they're the ones who deal with the limitations in some cases in the charter on a regular basis, and would have some insight that we don't have.
can I ask how complex is the change you see coming?
to be honest, I think that's why this is the best path forward, because I don't know where all of us are in our mindsets. There's been a lot of conversations about the charter. We attempted to have a subcommittee a few years ago. Do we want to look at that first and jump from there? Do we want to look at it fresh? So I think instead of jumping the gun and saying, okay, let's get a committee and move forward, yeah, I think that's the easiest for everybody to swallow and not too much at once.
Not to leave the process behind, because we do want to keep working towards the right deadline.
Yes. So I think the next step would be, Margaret will reach out to all of you in the next week or two and get some availability. We'll put together some agendas and hopefully get these scheduled between August and October, just so we can get it off the ground, yeah.
And,
great.
and you will facilitate those workshops?
Yes.
Okay.
It's absolutely there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The next update is the roofing project. So we did meet with the company that's going to be doing our roofing project. It was one of our capital plan projects in the budget. We paused it due to the delay. We just got the scope of work and they are, remember the term? They can bid for us.
There was a term.
Yeah. Anyway, we don't have to go out to bid, they have, I can't remember off the top of my head, I apologize, but they're making it very easy for us. They will do all the bidding for us, it meets our procurement policy requirements, it meets theirs, and then they'll select a vendor, the vendor will come do the work. We're gonna knock out. Say it again.
General contracting?
There's a term where it's not sole source, that's what.
Oh,
It's like
It's.
So we're following procedure, but they're assisting us.
yes. And we're gonna do the state and county portion at the same time for some cost savings. So we've coordinated with the state and all of that. So just wanna give an update that we have received that. Once we give the okay, then start on that process. So we should be in line to finish this year as,
So before the winter?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Before the buckets get full.
The other quick update is we are working on getting some availability from our department managers and our budget committee, and then probably you all, about having a quarterly joint budget meeting. I would like to just have a year-to-date update of where we are. I'd like to talk about, our audit, kind of where we are, closed of 2025. Give an update on capital plan projects, where we are we anticipating everything finishing on time? And then any major drivers for the 2027 budget that we may already take care of, to just get them up to speed. Have a nice back and forth, make sure whatever they want to see this year, so just a very open one. So we're getting availability to do that, we haven't done it in a while, so I'm hoping we can schedule that, and then we'll get out the formal budget process calendar shortly after.
Do we have a report back on how we're doing on budget committee members and them sitting for election next November?
That is in progress. But yes, we are working on it. And I think 4 confirmed right now
The running for election,
that we will have next year.
so we need at least one more. When do we need? Can the budget committee still appoint somebody at this point that they're not members? Even though they're not in session?
Anybody whose term is coming up, they have been given the papers to get their signature to be reappointed. Those were given back in March or April. I have to do a little refreshing, but I believe the deadline was, I think you have to get on the ballot June.
Yeah.
So I think we've missed that vote. The importance of the charter discussion is that all of these election things are so out of the county's control. But then we are the entity that is hindered at the end of that. So I think that's a piece that we need to discuss, but the other piece is we still have that legislative language through 2028, so.
Do you believe that John took out his papers?
Great news.
And so I think we will have enough members, to have a forum to reappoint anybody that we need to effect.
Or
That's,
we can appoint some new members, right?
if we can, but we would prefer to keep it within the normal realm of what the charter allows us to do without using the state law. And have them just do their normal appointing of whoever else is,
They
whatever
did,
seats are open.
when I was in Rockport, I talked to someone. twist the arm a little bit to get representative finally from that county. So
Okay.
we'll see if I, hopefully get back to me in August, so.
Okay,
If we can, because they can still get appointed to the committee for this fall's budget process.
That's what I spoke.
Yeah.
Actually, no, that's, but I don't. Our budget committee members, are those local elections or is that also a state election like commissioners?
I'm still brushing up on all of that.
Okay. The question that's driving that question is if it is the state election, they would have to register with the state as a write-in. But if not, they can just run as a write-in for a local election and they don't have to do anything.
Okay,
They
okay.
can just,
It is a state election.
it is a state.
It is a state election. It is one of the rare ones that's nonpartisan. It's not party, so the get on the ballot, you do it after or you don't need to get it in time to be on the primary. It's the same as running as an
Yeah.
independent, so you get whatever the date is by the 15th of June, I don't know what the date is now. But so they get on the ballot on the state ballot. And yes, they can still run as a write-in on the ballot, but they have to then register with the state to be
To be a
a
write-in.
candidate, yes.
To be a writing candidate, I believe they have to register with the state
Yeah.
sometime by the end of August. So there's still time to run
Okay.
as a write-in.
Which
They
is,
just have to get their paperwork into the Secretary of State's office.
which is why having a budget committee joint meeting before that deadline would be
Yes.
nice to have, so we can give everybody the information.
Exactly. And gauge who
Yeah.
we're working with.
Because other people can be, you don't have to be currently a member of the budget committee to run for election. And so if somebody wants to be, like the person you know wants to run as a independent or as a write-in, they're certainly welcome.
Yeah, we'll try to wrap that up and have some more clear direction for the August commission meeting / quarterly budget meeting.
Thank you.
I can open the next one, but I'll, okay.
Opening it.
Okay, we have been talking about the sheriff's office and need for deputies and what that looks like. So you all were provided a summary of a grant opportunity that the sheriff's office has. And the hope is that you will all be in favor or on board, to at least apply for this grant opportunity. Doesn't mean that we're tied to anything at this point, but at least we can see what we might get from that grant opportunity and then have a healthy conversation about what that could look like for the county. So this is really just an approval to submit or continue moving forward, and then depending on, again, if we're approved, what we're approved for, we would come back and have a different conversation. So that is that piece. There is a July 23rd deadline to submit that, so I just want to make sure we get that in and cleared up today. Feel free to add anything.
Would the sheriff's office be willing to help guide us through this? You got come in?
For those at home, Pat Bulkey here. So COPS opportunities, I forget the exact, thing, community oriented policing or something like that. Basically, it's federal grants, typically put out by the Department of Justice in order to help fund various programs within law enforcement entities. We've participated in the past as a county around rural policing type items. The most recent grant that we had was what was called the Connect to Protect grant, which was to give us mental health professionals to assist in those struggling with mental health illnesses and co-occurring substance use issues that were frequenting our facility as the jail, but also drawing our patrol deputies away from criminal matters that may have been, just because people are acting odd, we get called to a lot of those things. We just had one this morning with an individual running up and down a road, screaming at his neighbors, though not necessarily a police problem, but when nobody else is called, that's who gets called. So, as you all know, for years, we've been listening to not enough patrol coverage, not enough traffic enforcement, not enough drug enforcement. You've heard from me many, many, many times on what we feel the fix is. The fix is more staffing. We're just getting busier, our communities are getting bigger, we just need more staffing. I've given you kind of my matrix of what I feel the right number is. What I need to know from you folks is, how do you want to get there? It does not all have to be at once. But it should be at some point in order to make our communities feel like they are safe. They are seeing deputies on a regular basis. Like I said, I'm not gonna rehash all the issues, you know them. We have a huge area that we're covering on a regular basis, and our size department is roughly the same size of the department that covers just the city of Rockland. But yet we're covering probably 10 to 14 times the area with a very similar, or actually more, call volume. So, the only answer is unfortunately more personnel. So the cost grant in particular covers salary and fringe for the first 3 years, the fourth and fifth year, so it's a 5-year program. For the 5th year, we have to cover it all. They will cover 75% of that fringe and salary in the first 3 years. So, the previous COP grants, they would kind of tier it to where they start at like 80 and then go 60, 40, 20. Under this program, it's 75 for all 3 years, and then 0, but there's a performance period, meaning that it's 2 years, you have to basically keep those individuals on unless there's some kind of, employment falling out, I guess, is probably the best way to put it. So the challenge for us is we have, beyond salary, is we have equipment costs, training costs. Some costs are annual, some costs are every couple of years, some costs are every 5 years, some costs are one-time costs. So that becomes a little bit of a challenge to break out those costs. So I did some just rough numbers to give you kind of a ballpark. These are based off last year's and our current negotiations, but approximately, approximately 150,000 is annual salary and fringe for us for staffing right now. COPS grant at the 75%.
That's per
person, correct.
And the figure that I've heard is that the need really is 8 deputies. That's still where you would stand.
Yes, so ultimately to get staffing to a point where we're not seeing overtime like we're seeing it, to have officer safety, to have really the ability to be in as many towns as possible. Again, not to give too many numbers, but at most you've got 3 people on duty covering 14 communities that don't have their own police department. That includes the island communities. And that is a challenge for us. Like I said, we have a similar sized department as the city of Rockland. They're providing that same staffing in a much smaller area. 8 is a number that would get us into those rural areas that we need to be in. Some of the challenges, also bigger towns. Warren in particular, if you've seen some of the statistics we were putting out on social media, Warren draws our attention a lot. It's a bigger town, it has a lot more service demand, and deputies tend to be there more, which then leaves the other smaller towns that don't necessarily have that demand, in essence, uncovered. They're gonna be covered for emergencies, but they're not just gonna see a deputy just driving through town. This number of 8, even though it sounds like it's a lot, really only gives us 2 more deputies per shift. Run a 12-hour shift program, and basically we'd be adding 2 people per shift to the 4 shifts that we run.
If we had our wish, we would like to have more, but this is what you need.
Right, to me, this is a reasonable number. Yes, if you run some of the Department of Justice recommendations, some of the number crunching actually tells us we almost have to double our agents. That is definitely a hard ask. 8 is still a hard ask as well, but It could be one a year, it could be one every 2 years. I mean, it really is up to you folks to decide what is the right number, what can we afford? The challenge I continue to run into is they're not coming to you to say there's not enough deputies, they're coming to me to say, and I just have to say, well, I don't have the money to give you more deputies. Here's a chance to try to find some of that money. And just I need some guidance on what you want that number to be, so that when we come before the budget committee and say, hey, we have this grant opportunity, here's what we've plugged in, do you support it?
So, sorry, to clarify, 150,000 covers the training, the salary,
That is just annual salary and fringe. You have, so approximately 249 to 250 is the total cost. So in the first year, we would be responsible for approximately $150,000 of that. The feds would cover about 112, 113,000.
okay, so what's the total cost for one deputy? It's
It's approximately 250.
250. Sorry, just,
Would you also need more patrol vehicles?
That's all part of
That's
this
all.
cost. And those are the costs that would be probably every 5 years. We tend to cycle through cars 3 to 5 years, depending on make, model, repairability, that stuff. We are looking at a fleet management program with an external vendor. There are several county and town entities that have gone to a vendor recently and are actually seeing a very improved fleet, but they're also seeing a reduced cost in that annual percentage. That's something we're not. We're not good at being fleet managers necessarily. We're good at being law enforcement. Like I said, this is a newer program that's made its way to Maine, and they have been really good at figuring out, especially with cars that may be lemons in particular, of how to cycle them out quicker to get you kind of that return on that investment. Even though everybody drives a used car, there's a way to get some money out of that before you get to a point where you can't get what it is worth.
so another question. So the total cost for 8 deputies is $2 million. 250 times.
Thereabouts.
Yeah. And obviously grants are a good thing. I am hearing that federal people are changing the rules for grants that make it very difficult to look at them compared to what they want from us. So Kathy, my question is, and we get time, it's what does it take per resident of Knox County? And I don't know how you figure this out. I guess you have to do that. Something I've asked previously to fund $2 million. What would it cost for each taxpayer in Knox County? Is that something we can figure so we have an idea? What's that?
Yeah, we have that calculated.
So we know options.
We're not gonna do that. I don't think that's what the sheriff is really asking for. We're asking for a timeline to see if we can build up to that many people. Just hiring that many people, training that many people, getting all the equipment is a demand on resources already. My question is the COPS grant, when you apply for it, can we apply for 2 people this year and then 2 people next year and then 2 people the year after that? Is it an annual application process, or is this like, the only time we're gonna have an opportunity in the next 5 years to apply?
So if you recall in your time applying, they never guarantee the future. But you can ask to do a tiered system in your current ask. So we can ask to do the idea of 2 this year, 2 next year, 2 following year. I think the maximum that would be allowed is 3 years of that initial 3-year period, so. But they would then carry it on, so in year 3, you could then get year 3, 4, and 5. Then you would be evaluated for years 6 and 7 beyond that. Again, you can ask, there's nothing saying you can't, doesn't say that they'll necessarily give it to us. Again, this is just for the application itself. They could say, no, you don't qualify, or they could say, yes, we like this idea, we're gonna do it, and then we could say, no, we don't have the money to do it when we get in front of the budget. So, this is just that initial ask, putting the application together just to see if it's even feasible to do what we want to do. So again, we could do, there's the option to try to do it all at once, there's the option to try to delay it out, so.
It's just that the budget hit to everybody of that much money. Though the first couple of years, because it's a 3-year thing, we get 75% of 250,000. We don't get 75% of 250,000. We get 75% of 150,000. So we're getting 100,000, and it's still costing us 150,000 per officer that we're putting out on the street
For the first year only.
for the first year.
When you get into your second and third years, it does get cheaper because those capital costs are already paid for. You're just maintaining some of those things.
And then comes the big hit, year 4, when we're paying the full salary.
The administrator and I have chatted about that. There's a plan to possibly give ourselves a tiered program where we talk to the budget committee about year 1, do the 75, a year 2 and 3, we look at maybe giving a little more into, lack of a better term, escrow or reserve accounts, where then we could use that funding in year 4 and 5 to offset 5 expenses.
Well, my recommendation, I think, follows on what your recommendation was, which was to see if we can have a tiered application process. Apply for 2 people. I mean, I think we're probably all in agreement that we would like to find a way to add 2 more officers for next year. Whether it's through cops or through just straight funding, whatever it's gonna be. And this is a way to make that happen, at least a little bit less expensively to the citizens. And so it seems to me that applying for two, every couple of years or every year, lets us sort of slowly slide into that. It keeps it's sort of like a capital improvement plan. We know what the costs are gonna be every year into the future.
Yeah, the document or the memo that you sent to us about this, you had in the first year 2 patrol deputies and 1 specialized detective. Is that, and then, and it looks like then in 28, 3 patrol deputies and 29, 3 patrol deputies. Is that still your thinking?
May have done that, or I thought I did the 2, I can't remember. So we've talked about a bunch of different versions.
And it will then,
Um,
based on what you sent, it looks like it was three per year, that first year having a specialist detective, and the next, all the other years, just for patrol detectives, or, I'm sorry, deputies. Is that still what you're thinking?
Yeah, so one of the big challenges for us is the illicit drug side of things. That is the second biggest complaint along with traffic. Actually, I would say that I would get illicit drug complaints more than anything. We just don't have the dedicated detectives to deal with that. We used to work with MDEA. We worked with them a few times here and there, but they're also, because of the way grants are going, they're getting their hands tied in certain ways. There's only certain drug trades that they will deal with. They're not necessarily chasing prescription drug abuse. They're not necessarily chasing these other things. They're chasing certain things, which has made it frustrating for some of our community members because they want some help and they don't feel like they're getting it still. So that is between the deputies that we need on the road to show presence. We also need some specialists who are able to get into some of these areas within our community to help those communities do what they're asking, which is help us get some of these illicit drugs out of our neighborhoods.
I think I was more focused on the numbers,
Yeah.
but I appreciate the need for the speculation.
The specialized detective, that's a separate grant that we look
I
at,
know
which
that looks like.
that'll pay for a lot more. And there's not necessarily any burden to us until we get to the end of that grant. Again, we can also work on trying to stagger a set of budget, designated budgeting in there in order to catch up or, draw down almost like a contingency fund, if you will, not contingency necessarily, but you know what I mean?
Yes.
give us the ability to make it a slower increase on the tax.
And so that would be, it says potential 100% federal and state, is that accurate still?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's still accurate. So that is specific to, similar to the Connect to Protect grant, because it is addressing some of these root causes of these behaviors that we're seeing that are causing the criminal justice system to kind of overinflate. By having these specialized individuals to do that work, it's not necessarily criminal enforcement as much as it is community network building. So it is, as long as you stick to that and don't do just the patrol enforcement, they are willing to fund a lot of that, if not all of it.
I guess my fear is if we ask for too much, that they might say no, rather than just say, yeah, well, we can have 2 deputies, you know.
$21 billion being provided.
Well, I know they have a lot of money, but that doesn't mean they're gonna give it to us. You know, there's still somebody up there saying, oh, they don't need that much. And if they decided we didn't need year 2 and 3, they might decide we don't need year 1 either.
Potentially.
You know, I just assume we made sure we got the first year, the first 2, rather than worry about the rest of them. I just wanna make sure that we put our application in the best light.
Which, I mean, I can do that as well. We could do a 1 year. Ask
But we don't know if
see what
it's gonna be-
happens.
yeah.
Right.
And the other one is, you know, when you talk to the other sheriffs, if there are a lot of other sheriffs applying for cops grants around the state.
So I don't, because we've all been kind of in the summer months and this just came out, I saw a few weeks ago. I'm sure some have contemplated it. The challenge for some of them is that do you have enough demand? You know, I've been working on these numbers for a while, so I think I have a pretty good case to sell of why we need it. You know, Scottsbluff County, I think, probably has a good sell of why they need it. But somewhere like Penobscot or Cumberland, maybe not so much, but they tend to go after equipment grants, not necessarily personnel grants. This is typically geared towards those rural agencies like ourselves, or smaller agencies like Thomaston, to just try to help get staffing that the government knows we need.
Other questions, observations?
I'm just curious about, we don't know if we just apply for 2 instead of doing the whole step thing, we don't know what'll happen in the following years.
Correct. Yeah, so this particular grant, so the cops hiring program comes and goes. So depends on the administration a lot of times. Some administrations feel that staffing is the priority, some administrations feel that support services are the priority. You know, it will come and go. You know, again, to your point, we may not even get awarded any. You know, we all get scored by the federal government in certain ways. You know, to your point about some of the language we've challenged as a state, the language may still be there, we may not accept it anyways.
When will they make the decision?
Typically, they'll review, so the end of July is when they will get them back, they'll review them for August. And sometimes through September, they may ask for additional information in September, but usually you'll know by the end of September because they'll start the grant period in October 1. Because they're based off an October 1 fiscal year.
It
So
seems
that
like
would
it,
happen right when we're starting to go into budget session.
it seems like it would make sense, Pat, for you to come to the quarterly budget meeting to talk about this. Maybe you were already planning on doing that, but I think especially if we do get an award, that's kind of a preemptive decision ahead of the budget committee. And so I think we need to be really transparent with them about what's happening because it's potentially tying their hands.
It's definitely ahead of our December vote. Cause I think you have 30 days to accept or deny, which would give us November 1st-ish. So it is ahead of it, but yes, having them in that discussion is very important. Back to the charter thing, I think, like we've talked about, I think the committee needs to be more involved in these types of things, not necessarily all of a sudden getting it in November saying, hey, surprise. Especially with this offsite that I know the county commissioners talked about, do we get all the counties on a fiscal calendar year versus a fiscal budget year versus a calendar budget year? Just because of some of the way that some of these grants and things work, it really does hinder some of our abilities.
And I wonder, speaking of the budget committee and the way our budget works in accepting grants, and the way this grant is accepted, or is designed, if we accept the grant, do we accept the whole 4 years, 5 years, or a tiered program?
We won't know until,
Or can we accept, like, for the first year, just accept the money for the first 2 officers?
it'd be up to the grant manager. So working with the grant manager through Connect and Protect, we actually were able to ask for extensions, or able to ask for a bunch of things, because they, the intent is once they're awarded is for it to be as successful as possible. They provide technical experts to help you through the process. If you're not good at spreadsheets, if you're not good at understanding specific parts of the federal statutes, they will provide support to make it as successful as possible.
I mean, because I can see that working with the budget committee, it's not gonna be that hard to sell to get 2 officers. I think we can do that without too much trouble, but adding 8 might be something that the budget committee rebels at, just because of the amount of money this means. And so I'd like to see us be in a position where we're pretty sure that we get the money for 2, and not have to turn it down because we can't get the money for 8. If that makes sense.
That's-
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. So, does this need to be an act where we give you permission to apply for this grant?
Just needs to be in concert, just making sure that we are getting your permission to do it. Because we don't want to obligate funding. Once we get to the point of obligating, then we need a vote.
Permission granted.
Yes. Thank you for bringing it forward.
The last discussion item is around the Two Bridges Regional Jail Partnership. So as we've announced many times, we've had our steering committee meetings. We meet monthly with Lincoln and Saginaw counties to talk about how that relationship is going. At a few recent meetings, I think the commission has suggested or encouraged some sort of internal Knox County committee to be a part of that conversation. I did a little thinking, brainstorming, researching on that, and I personally don't know how effective that will be. We already have the steering committee, we have our commission meetings, we have our budget meetings, everybody has their groups. I think what the public may appreciate a little bit more, and might be more helpful for you all, is to, similar to the charter, hold a couple of public workshops. Let people have public comment, maybe give some updates, probably the representative, and then probably sheriff, captain, myself, whoever else is appropriate, some people from the Two Bridges Authority potentially. But schedule those between now and the end of the year, so that, before we make a decision on what next year looks like, we've heard from the public, because I know that's a really important piece for this community. I think having an internal Knox County specific committee, I don't know that we all have the bandwidth to do that. I also don't know if it's singling people out for being able to participate. So I thought more a public, announce, get people in the room, let's have a conversation, towns, right? Other PDs may have feedback. So I think that keeps it a bit more open and transparent. So that would be my recommendation as an alternative to the internal Knox committee, I think is what we were calling.
I like that recommendation. I think we also have 3 community members who are participating on the partnership steering committee, which has been really helpful to the process already. And so it's just so the public is aware that we do have members of the public participating actively. But I agree that giving a public a more open opportunity for people to share their thoughts would be really helpful. And if there's a way to mirror something how the EAS did with the public comment
that was available through a link to be able to comment on that. So I can maybe mirror a process like that if it's appropriate, just so people that maybe aren't able to attend or scheduling conflicts, what have you, can still have an opportunity to share.
Do we have a report on how we're doing versus our budget to Two Bridges at this point? Are we roughly on track? Not that we're gonna spend money the same way. Obviously, some lines are costing more than we thought they would, and some lines might be costing a little less. But are we at about spending about the amount of money that we thought we would total?
Last time I spoke with Captain Wood, yes, we are on track. And you're absolutely right. Some things are a little bit more. Feel free.
From the beginning through this early winter, early spring, we were seeing numbers not where we hoped they would be, but they weren't over. But we are seeing that stabilize out, so we are projecting that we'll be at or under budget by the end of. That's for both. Even in the Two Bridges agreement, there may be opportunity to look at either providing additional services for the same money or reducing that potential future contracts.
Because that affects, I mean, obviously, we want to know that we come out at the end of this year where we want to be. We don't want to dip into whatever few reserves we have just to cover that. But we also want to know where we're going to be next year in terms of, you know, we know this is financially, this is a great thing because we could never have afforded the increase in the jail costs. But our hope is that next year it has stabilized what those costs are going to be, so that instead of looking at a 20% increase every year, we're looking at something that's much more manageable. And so knowing that we're about where we're supposed to be helps us in that direction.
And I know our captain over there, as well as our maintenance, are looking at it very closely. This is kind of a year to look at the trends, look at the transition. Obviously, we knew there were going to be ebbs and flows, but we kind of needed this time to see what does it take to heat and cool, how much water are we going to be using now, et cetera, so to be better prepared. So I know they're doing a lot of due diligence around that.
And this is a case where I'd like to thank Morgan for being the one who goes to those meetings on a regular basis. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's gonna be an interesting process.
Anything else you'd like to bring up? Oh, okay. Action items, we have a few action items on the agenda. One is an act to approve and authorize the Knox County Administrator's contract.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Let's get it done.
I will point out, just for everybody's knowledge, that we have the contract, we have it in hand. There are a couple of what Brian Hart used to refer to as Scrivener's errors that need to be changed. We can approve the contract because it doesn't change the gist of the contract. And then I'll sign it when we have the opportunity once it's been changed. If that's all right.
We have to vote on.
Yes. We don't have to vote on the changes, we can vote on the contract in general. And all those in favor? 3 in favor, none opposed. Next one is an act to approve and sign the collective bargaining agreement between the County of Knox and the National Corrections Employee Union for January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2027.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion.
So there is a little bit of delay getting this to you. There are a lot of conversations, a lot of transitions, both within the county, as you all are well aware, and at the unions level. They had some changes over there. So this was a little drawn out, but we finally finished. We're gonna get it signed. Knox County has been honoring everything in the contract since we thought we were going to have it signed beginning of 2025, so there should be no issues there. We've upheld our portion of that, and we're happy to be getting it done, just in time to enter negotiations, next year for another 3-year contract. So I'm happy to wrap this up and yes. I can kind of give a brief overview on major changes, but there really wasn't too many. Yeah,
My question would be, because we're switching, this is for the corrections, and we're switching the mechanism or the facility that we're using and how we're doing it, are there changes that are reflected in this contract because of the way we're changing our contract with Two Bridges or?
oh,
Supervisory
positions,
fees.
okay.
Yeah, so there was some change to allow for staff to, similar like we do with the FTOs and officers in charge on the patrol side, we did the same thing with this for them on the corrections side. So it's a win-win in a way, we're getting professional development at an earlier period in their career and giving them the opportunity to succeed as officers in charge for shifts to build that and mentor them into being future supervisors. So then we're giving them a small stipend as part of that.
That's also something to recognize that even though we've switched facilities or the responsibility for corrections still falls on the sheriff's shoulders.
Yes,
Thank you.
they are still all protected employees under the union.
Yep.
As it stands now, yeah.
Other questions or observations?
The
Seeing
thing I might add that I didn't add in initial report is that I've also been involved with the FOP discussions with the deputies union. That's ongoing as well, so that will be coming up soon.
If no other discussion, all those in favor? 3 in favor, none opposed. Thank you. Understand how hard those negotiations can be, so thank you all for the extra work that it takes. Anything else to come before the commission?
We had discussed, we have some scheduling things going on in August. So we had discussed, I think the regular meeting falls on Tuesday, the 11th, off the top of my head, I believe. We were discussing either moving it up a week to August 4th or delaying back to August 25th. Bear with me on the date, I think that's about what it is. I don't know, and we were gonna kind of gauge depending on business needs and all this other stuff. I don't think we have a lot pressing on us at this time. I'm not sure what the next couple of weeks are gonna hold. At this rate, I think the first week of the month is always very busy for all of us. So the 25th may make more sense, but
The reason you're skipping the 18th?
scheduling issues. So those are the 2 days all 3 are available. So if you have a preference, I will proceed as that. Otherwise, I will just recommend the 25th and just for bandwidth capacity, timeline, etc.
25th is fine with me.
It's okay, they're all fine.
25th, yes, Tuesday.
Yeah, I just wanted to double check.
Yep.
I know you and I had talked about it, but.
Okay. Okay, perfect. I will get that out.
With the understanding that if there's some emergency or something that we have to do, we can meet some other time other than our regular meeting.
To schedule a budget meeting at the beginning of August, which may be helpful for our August commission meeting.
Good.
We're moving the 11th to the 25th.
Yes, I'll send an email.
If there's nothing further to come before the commission, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, without objection. We adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you all.